wanted to make a video this morning about what to do when it feels like shit has hit the fan and you don't know what to do, because it's a position that I have found myself in recently, and there's a few things I'm doing which are kind of helping me to maintain some control. You know, I can't change the situation as it is right now, but there are some things I can do to at least minimize the amount of stress and anxiety that that causes. So for some context, I recently got diagnosed with ADHD, and it's not really relevant to this video, but it is important to give that precursor because it means I'd started a medication recently. So I find myself starting this new medication. I am not able to stay at my home at the moment because there are a lot of building works going on. So we've had to move out, my girlfriend and I, and she is staying at her dad's, I'm staying at mine. The ADHD diagnosis kind of showed me why there are certain jobs that didn't work out for me, and because of that, I quit my last job a couple of weeks ago, so I'm out of work. So I just find myself in this situation now where I'm taking this new medication. I am not living at my house, so I've had my roots, I've been uprooted in a sense. I'm out of work, and I'm worried about where my next paycheck's coming from, and all of these things are stressful events in themselves. And I feel like this is pretty small compared to some of the shit that other people have to go through. You know, and maybe you've lost your job, maybe you've lost your home, maybe you're in debt, maybe you're getting divorced, maybe you've had a recent health scare. Whatever it is, it's so easy, I think, to spiral from there when you hear or experience some stressful situation. It's really difficult to focus on what is important in that moment and not focus on all the negative shit stuff, because our brains are hardwired to focus on stressful, dangerous situations. And I think, you know, this goes back to when we were cavemen. Our brains are hardwired to focus on danger, because if we were just running around happy all the time and we didn't spot that saber-toothed tiger in the bushes, we'd be dead. So it makes far more sense in terms of from a survival perspective for us to be focused on things that could kill us than things that could make us happy. So what can we do then in situations where we feel like life's out of control and we don't know what to do about it? This is a concept that you might have heard of, you may not have done, but I'm going to talk a little bit about your zone of control, or your sphere of control, or whatever you want to call it. But the basic premise is this is something that affected me for a long time. We have a zone of control, right? And it's this small circle. And everything that's in that circle is things that we have immediate direct control over. So that might be what time we go to bed. It might be what we choose to eat. Anything that we have direct control over. And anything outside of that zone is outside of the zone. We don't have any control of it. So things like that, or things of that nature, might be the economy, it might be the weather, it might be other people's reactions to things that we do or say. There are a lot of things that we don't have any control over. And yet, ironically, at least for me, and having spoke to friends before, we do tend to focus on the things that are outside of that zone of control. And when you really reflect on it, it's so futile focusing on how bad the economy is, or how your brother reacted to something you said a year ago. There's nothing you can do to change these things, and yet our brain seems so focused on so focused on them, and it makes absolutely no sense. So my first suggestion is going to be to focus on what is within your zone of control. And it's actually pretty simple. Whenever you're having a negative thought about something, you just run it through a filter. And that filter basically states, do I have control over this? And there's going to be two answers to that. There's yes or there's no. And if the answer is yes, then you ask yourself, well, what can I do about it? And you make changes. You make the changes that you need to make. And of course, the other answer is no. And if the answer to that question is no, then the solution is simple. You stop focusing on it, and you focus then on something that is within your zone of control. Good examples of this for me at the moment is going running and training. So yeah, I don't have a huge amount of cash at the moment. I don't have a regular income, but the benefit of not having a job, I suppose one of the few benefits, is that you do have a lot of time. And so I have time to make these videos and to share my thoughts and my experiences. And I also have time to control how much I exercise and to look after my body. And so I'm choosing to spend a portion of my day dedicating it to looking after myself. And in this case, it's running. And I think this is probably key for anyone. Exercise is going to have a knock-on impact in every area of your life. Not only does it make you feel better, it makes you look better, and it's just this whole upward cycle of positivity when you exercise. Do you have to go on a half marathon every day? Absolutely not. You know, you start where you are. And if you're not into running, maybe you want to go for a walk. I don't know, if you can't walk, maybe there's some other kind of exercise that you can do. You know, just moving your body is so important, and that's something that I am focusing on at the moment. And I know for a fact that if I didn't do that, I would feel much worse about my entire situation. I feel like exercise takes the edge off of the panic and anxiety about the situation I find myself in at the moment. So yeah, that's an example of something that you've got control over. Another thing is I can't control the fact that I don't have a job at the moment, but I can control the fact that I can have plenty of time to apply for jobs. And so dedicating a portion of my day to controlling or applying for jobs is another thing that I can do. So when we're considering this zone of control, think about how this applies to you and your life, because it may feel like so much of your life is out of control, and that may be true, but not everything is outside of that zone of control. So what is within your zone of control right now? Don't focus on the shit that isn't. We've all got shit going on in our lives that we have absolutely no control over, and it would be great if we could, but focusing on those things is a fantasy. And let's bring ourselves back to reality and focus on what we can change, what we can do to change our situation. And the funny thing is that the more we focus on that small zone of control, the bigger it gets. So for instance, I don't know, if I find myself a job, then my zone of control expands because I have more money, and then I have more economic influence. I'm able to maybe go on a holiday. Instead of focusing before on the fact that I can't go on holiday because I don't have money, I have a job, therefore I have money, and suddenly my zone of control has expanded and I can go on holiday. So you'll find this about so many things. You know, maybe you're overweight and you can't run a marathon. Okay, so you start with walking around your block just once a day. And eventually you'll find that weight starts to come down, and what you're able to do with your body expands, and therefore your zone of control expands, and you have more options available to you. So this is something that I really have to keep focused on. Whether you have to put a reminder, write it on the back of your hand, or a post-it note, set an alarm on your phone, whatever it is, just remind your brain to run it through this filter of, is this problem within my zone of control or not? And if it is, do something about it. If it's not, let it go and focus on something that is. And this has been a tactic that I've come back to time and time again in my life, and has been super helpful. So there's one other tactic I find that works very well in these situations where shit's hit the fan. So let's assume you've focused on your zone of control and you've got a list of things that you can do and a list of things that you can't. When you go through that list of things that are within your zone of control, it is time then to focus on the biggest levers. And what I mean by that is the single tasks on that list that have the biggest amount of leverage. So, for instance, in my situation at the moment, the two things that have the biggest leverage is focusing on my health. I told you about running. I find that has a direct impact on everything else in my life. And so that, for me, spending an hour outside in nature running is so powerful that it is a big lever. And so I pull that before anything else, because that is one of the most important things on that list. And the other thing for me is applying for jobs, because being without work comes with its limitations. So, and those limitations impact my life to a degree that I'm not comfortable with. So applying for jobs and going for interviews is another one of those big levers that I can pull. And so looking at your list of things from your zone of control, what is one or two of those tasks that have the biggest influence on your overall life? This, again, I think is just one of those things. It's in the self-development world, I think there is so much information out there, and for anyone that's kind of digested a lot of it, like myself, it's easy to forget the simple things. And the reason those simple things are discussed over and over again is because they work. So yeah, those are my two things. I would focus firstly on my zone of control. What can I do that is gonna what is within my influence, and not on the things that I don't have any control over. And the second thing is to focus on is to figure out which of those things within your zone of control has the biggest influence, has the biggest amount of leverage. Hope that's helpful. I wanted to keep this video fairly short this morning. It was just something that kind of came to my mind. I used to create a lot. Well, I used to try and create some overly edited, overly scripted stuff, and it used to stress me out, and it never used to come out the way that I thought, or the way I wanted it to. And these kind of videos where I just shoot from the hip and there's no script and I'm just talking, yeah, I may waffle a little bit, but if you can extend to me a slight amount of patience, I'm hoping there is some gold in there for you. So yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions. Let me know if those things have, or how those things have influenced you. What is within your zone of control and what's not, and what are your biggest levers. Stay tuned. As always, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, because it genuinely does help. I know people get sick of hearing it on YouTube, and I don't blame you. I do as well. But for those influencers, social media people that whose message you agree with, when you like their stuff and you subscribe, it shows the algorithm that stuff is useful, and it will spread that message to other people that might want to hear it or might need to hear it. So yeah, please just take 2 seconds, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Speak to you soon.